All right. We are so glad y'all are here. You know, we really are. My name is Kelly Hunsucker, and I am thrilled to be your speaker today. I really am. Thank you for joining us today to talk about real estate. You know, it's an important subject, right? We feel like it is important that we, as real estate agents, get together and do this. So we're going to be doing this again, you know, every month. All right? Today, we are here to dive into the recent changes introduced by NAR. These changes mark a pivotal shift in our industry, affecting everything from commission structures and transparency to the way we talk to our clients, right? And our other real estate agents. So, guys, I want to encourage all of you to participate, you know, ask questions. We want to know what you guys are feeling about this, okay? So let's get started, all right? Let's see who's on our panel today. Right here we have Desiree White, who is the top listing agent on the Marty Hampton team and has quite an impressive record, having sold over 600 homes with sales exceeding $500 million throughout her whole career. Specializing in the luxury market, she brings over 20 years of negotiation skills and sales experience to her clients. Desiree is not just a top agent. She's not. She dedicates her life to her family and to helping others achieve their real estate goals. Known for her relentless pursuit of excellence, she has rightfully earned, get this y'all, the title, Open House Queen. And she is the open house queen for sure. She's a powerhouse in the real estate world, and we are thrilled to have her. Let's give her a hand. Our next panelist here is Renee Hillman. As a team leader of Hillman Real Estate Group, Renee is a consistent top producer and one of the top brokerages in North Carolina. With a passion for negotiation honed through personal experience, she thrives in securing the best outcomes for her clients. She has a motto over there on her team. She says, tailored service equals exceptional results, right? Renee's dedication to this principle is very evident, with over 80% of her business coming from repeat clients and referrals. With a career boasting well over 2,000 transactions and the management of millions upon millions of dollars in real estate, Renee believes that experience truly makes a difference in this industry. Let's give her a round of applause. Woo! All right, our third panelist for today is Agent Tanya Youngman. With a career spanning nearly 2 decades in the hospitality industry, Tanya has found her true calling in the real estate industry. She has been with the Marty Hampton team for over a year, and being part of this team has elevated her real estate business to new heights. Tanya is dedicated to helping individuals and families seamlessly navigate the process of buying a home. She believes that buyers are not just finding a house, they're finding a place where cherished moments happen. Her mission is to serve her clients in their real estate endeavors, whether buying or selling, and she stands behind them every step of the way. Let's give a hand for Tanya Youngman. Woo! And our last panelist, I can't see you over there, is Hunter Boyd. Okay, Hunter, as the Director of Sales for the Sherry Riano team, a distinguished mortgage team based out of Cary, North Carolina, he brings a wealth of expertise and a proven record of success in driving sales growth and providing excellent client service. It's all about that excellent client service, right? His deep understanding of the mortgage industry enables him to deliver tailored solutions that meet the unique needs of each client. Let's give a hand for Hunter. All right. I know you guys are ready to get started with this, okay? So let's start out. Let's don't waste any more time. Question number 1, Desiree White. How might the new commission structures influence the overall dynamics of the real estate market? Do you need that? Kelly, repeat that question again. Oh, sorry. How might the new commission structures influence the overall dynamics of the real estate market?
Well, structures are in place for a reason, right? So, well, I think it's all just going to pan out. We all need structure in our life, right? So once new structures are in place, we just adapt. So I think we're going to adapt to this new real world like we did with every other change in the real estate industry. What do you think, Renee?
Kelly, repeat the question again.
How might the new commission structure influence the overall dynamic of the real estate market?
So I'm not sure that I would say it's a new commission structure, right? I mean, we have been very fortunate in North Carolina that our forms have been very forward, proactive. We've always had disclosure of all of this, right? So really the difference is not necessarily that, but it's how it's going to be displayed, how it's going to be communicated agent to agent and to our clients. So I think, ultimately, as Desiree said, I think there's going to be that little transition time period that we always go through. I don't know how many people in this room remember when we had due diligence. That was probably the last truly significant change that we had on our contract. And I think everyone was up in arms over that, right? But we figured it out. And so I think we have to go about this change with confidence and really confidence in our abilities to communicate and educate our client.
Good answer. Good answer. All right, Renee, this question's for you. How can agents build and maintain trust with clients in the current real estate environment?
So I think the biggest thing, right, as we always talk about our markets being micro markets, right, or highly local, those type of things. And, from a NAR standpoint, right, this was a national settlement. And I don't think a lot of people, and I've heard different numbers on this, but we'll just go with this number, only 18 states out of 50 in the U.S. had buyer agency agreements, right? I don't even remember, and Marty, you might remember, I can't remember a time practicing without a buyer agency agreement. And that's going back to like the late 90s. Don't let my youthful appearance fool you guys. I've been doing this a long time. So anyway, my thought is we really have to come from education, right? Being able to clearly and concisely communicate what we do for our clients, right? It's overwhelming. I mean, it's overwhelming even for us that do that on a daily basis. So for someone to think that they can just go about doing this process for their largest investment, in my mind, just seems ridiculous, right? Like I even tell people, even when we've bought, residences outside of our, main markets here outside of the Raleigh area, that we've also hired agent representation, and that's with having my license. So I really, truly believe in that importance. We're passionate about it. And I think when you're able to communicate all of that effectively, yes, have your 2-minute spiel about what happened on the national level. But again, real estate is very local. And, I'm not naive enough to think that it's not going to change things moving forward. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a transition, right, as we all kind of work through our systems and processes. But I think it will all settle out, right, and we'll all be fine.
This is a new change for the agent side of real estate, but there have been large real estate changes in the past. 2008 and 2009, we had a very similar dramatic change to just real estate structure in general, where lenders we had a closer eye on us. Everyone was kind of watching for, what are you disclosing? How are you disclosing it? Is it signed or is it just viewed? I mean, these were questions that before 2008, no one asked those questions before. No one cared. They bought a house, you gave them a loan, goodbye. I think the biggest thing that got lenders through that time period was I don't know if it's want to say the trust, but the peace of mind that it wasn't just me. I'm not the only one going through this. Every other lender who is subject to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines is going through this same change at the same time. We're going to establish new normals. It was rocky at first. It kind of sucked having to explain what all these new other forms were and why I needed to disclose this and how much points were and things like that. But at the same time, we got through it, and now it's established normal. No one expects to buy a house without seeing 700,000 documents from their lender at this point. And I think the same thing is going to happen for you guys. Yeah, give it 6 months, but just kind of take heart in the fact that you're not the only one going through this. If they go talk to another agent, they have to have the same conversation that you're having now. So make that first conversation clear, concise, upfront, be as transparent as possible, and they'll remember that. I mean, they still remember that on our side today. So.
Good answer. Good answer. If anybody has a question along this way, just raise your hand, okay? And we'll get to you. Next question, Tanya. What challenges do first-time homebuyers face, and how can we help them through it?
Getting all wrapped up here. I think first-time homebuyers face just not knowing about real estate in general. They've heard something on the news, they've talked to a family member, they have a lot of misconceptions about what it's going to be like to buy a house. So when you sit down with them, they're kind of my favorite to work with because you really get to educate them and just walk them through every step of the process. And now there's going to be a few extra layers there, but I think overall it's going to help benefit them.
Sorry. It's all about educating those first-time home buyers. Last question for this round is lender Hunter Boyd. What are the key changes introduced by NAR that lenders should be aware of, and why are they significant?
Sure.
Do you need the thing?
So the biggest things that have come out is, one, the VA has announced that veterans can pay for their buyer agent commission. And two, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac has come out and said that buyer agent commission will not count towards seller concessions on in a contract. That means that the buyer is not going to be penalized if some of those concessions from the seller are going to be paying for agent commission. That's huge for them, because now the conversation becomes, is it a situation where we can go up $1,000, $2,000, and it's still comp, and it's a wash for the seller and the buyer as well. Every lender should be looking more closely at cash to close from now on. Every lender should be having a conversation more intently on, hey, have you had a conversation with your buyer's agent on how they're going to be paid and the structure that that's going to come from. I also think that from a lender's perspective, we're going to have a lot more communication with you guys, because if our buyer is capped at $365,000 in purchase price and there is no room to move up, there needs to be a very clear conversation on, do we have a seller's buy-in on paying buyer agent commissions, because we can't move this purchase price any higher to adjust for seller concessions. That kind of just communication, while should have already been happening, very clear communication between what your buyer can and can't do, it just now even more so needs to happen.
I do have a question on this, because this has been something that I think as we navigate through this process, I'm sure, again, we'll figure it all out. But from a lender's standpoint, like let's say you've got a buyer coming to you to get pre-qualified. Yeah. And let's say they're $400,000 buyer. And like you said, there's some restrictions on that. When you're doing those cost estimate worksheets and things like that, will you be running different scenarios, meaning having them paying the commission versus not paying the commission? And then how does that affect your disclosure that, all of those type of things too?
Yep. So the initial quote won't be held to disclosure compliance and things like that, because it can change until they go under contract. Biggest thing is going to be when you send over a lead to us, I think we should be having a conversation about like what your communication has been so far as well in that, where if they're completely ready for that and we need to put 2.4 or whatever it is on the loan estimate sheet, that's great. I prefer to stay in my own lane in this. I'm happy to disclose it, but I do not want to get into a position where I'm negotiating comp for a buyer's agent, because it kind of gets tricky at that point for us. So I think we as lenders have to be just very careful. It will probably come to a situation where I'm going to call you ahead of time before I send out a pre-qual with numbers on it, saying, hey, have we had a conversation yet? Have you prepared them for paying for this? Would you prefer I send these numbers out with or without them? We already send out a couple options anyways, so points, paying down points, no points, things like that. So we're used to sending multiple scenarios. I think it's just a matter of what you and your lender establish is y'all's new normal as well.
All right. You're kind of quiet out there. Come on, are you out there? Anybody have any questions?
I just have a question. Like on the communication between the lender, I think it would be more important than ever, because if we are negotiating like closing costs, and we're expecting that to be potentially for the cost of our compensation because the seller's not paying it. Like, how do we best communicate that with you so that you're taking that into consideration when you're going through your disclosure with your buyer? I don't want you to say, well, you have to come out, with this much more money out of pocket because of your agent compensation.
Yes.
Like, how do we best communicate with you and you with us?
Yeah, so I wanted to address the whole, seller compensation thing. We have always disclosed estimates for other people's fees. We have tolerances on attorney fees, title fees, things like that. So we're kind of used to disclosing other fees as well. And we kind of leave it up to, this is going to be subject to your agreements between you and the attorney or the title company. You can choose things like that. For a seller concession, I don't know what your lender usually does. The less I know, the better, though, preferably. I don't care what it's for. I don't want to know. Unless it's to buy down a rate specifically, then let me know. But other than that, just send me the form and I'll put it in there. From going forward, I think you and I will need to have a conversation on, is $2,000 of this for agent commission? Because if it is, then it's not going to be subject to the same tolerances that traditional seller concession is going to have. It's really just going to be you and I getting on a phone and saying, hey, look, this is what this is for. This is where it needs to be marked. And it'll probably be put in a separate category on our loan estimate or itemization fee. That way the underwriters can know to count it towards certain tolerances and certain ones that are not. I will not be having those conversations with the buyer on, hey, look, this is, we have to do this. We have to charge more, because that's not my spot. I've never done that for an attorney's fees. I've never done that for anybody, your homeowner's insurance fees. I'm not going to start the trend now. It's just what it's going to be going for needs to be communicated between you and I at that point. And you will handle your comp conversation with your buyer as well.
All right. Desiree, you're next. How can agents leverage their professional network to provide added value to clients?
Well, if you're like me, you have your favorite vendors that you go to, whether it be for home inspections or paint jobs or whatever it may be, and they've all done a great job for your clients in the past, and everybody loves them. But then you, to your clients, you should be looking at those vendors and reading the reviews that are out there, because your clients may love them, but others don't, right? So it's really important to keep up with that and have those hard conversations with the vendors and contractors that we use to say, hey, our people love you, but why am I reading these reviews that are maybe 2-star or below? What's going on? And have that hard conversation and say, look, we may be looking out for others if you can't keep up. So I think we owe it to our clients to have those conversations, but we're also the go-to person, let's be honest. When you're out with a buyer and they go under contract, they're going to want to know. They're going to look to you and say, what's next? What do we all have to do? Home inspections, great lenders. So yeah, it is important to leverage that.
Good answer. Good answer. All right, are y'all breathing out there? Tanya, you're next. What? I'm sorry. Renee. how might these changes influence the relationships between buyer and listing agents?
I think we could probably play the what if game for about, 3 days, right? And I think we've all kind of experienced this the last couple of months where it's almost just fatigue in talking about this, right? But I do think through each conversation, I've gleaned a little bit more, right? Through each mastermind, through obsessively reading, and actually you guys need to save this in your phones if you don't, but facts.realtor. That is kind of an ongoing update of everything that's kind of coming out of this settlement. And that's been a huge resource. But definitely plugging into groups and those type of things have been helpful. So back to the question. I kind of can see this playing out in a lot of different ways, right? I have an engineer mentality, even though I'm in sales, but hey, it works. So I could analyze this to death, but I think like everything, right? There's always going to be someone that wants a deal, right? Whether it's a for sale by owner, an investor client, or something like that along the lines. And I do think we'll probably see an uptick of people contacting the listing agent directly, thinking that they're going to get a better deal if they do that, right? Or cut the buyer's agent out. It's already been happening all along, right? Do I think there's going to probably be a little uptick in that? Probably. But I think, as on the listing agent side, because that's predominantly what I do, is being prepped for those conversations, right? So lots of role playing, things like that. My dad, he is a great person to kind of challenge me. So find that person that's going to challenge you with objections so that you can be prepared and on the ball to answer those objections quickly. And I do think every listing agent may handle this differently. I do not show buyers. For right this moment, and this could change, I'm not ever going to say never, but I don't plan to show my listings. And so that will be the conversation that I have with someone that's calling in. And I think, we are going to have to be our own best advocates. I do think we're going to see a lot of different models come out of this that it'll be fast and fury, flame, try this, try that, and then, ultimately burn out. But I think the more prepared we are for subsequent changes, right, in business models and things like that, it's no different than what we've been doing as a listing agent, right? We have been showing our value. Why would you choose me over, the 13,000 other people in our market, right? And so it's going to be the same way. So from a listing agent and buyer standpoint, I'm not really interested in doing dual agency. So for me personally, it's not going to change. But, obviously others in the room might be, set up with a different structure. So I think it's really understanding what your threshold is, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to compromise on, what your advocacy is for your clients, and then really put pen to paper and work on your standard operating practices moving forward, because it is going to be different. But I think the more prepared you are for all those little scenarios that come up, right? Like even within my team talking about, that online buyer that just randomly is contacting us, we have a completely different relationship with them than the client that we've done 5 or 6 transactions with over the last 20 years. So you need to be prepped for all those different conversations, get a role play partner. Like I said, for me, my dad, he is fiercely like, well, I'm not doing this, blah, blah, blah. And even though it's my dad, it's still like, but he challenges me in ways that helps me be a better agent, be a better communicator to our clients. So I encourage you to find kind of like that buddy, right, to help with that. So I don't really know ultimately if it's going to change that much. I just think about how we're going to communicate all of this is just going to be a little bit different than it has been.
All right, Tanya, you're up next. What skills are essential for a buyer agent to effectively support their clients?
Communication is going to be key. I mean, it always has been, right? But it's going to be even more so now because we need to be able to talk to the listing agent, reach out to them right away, get all the information we need. And we need to be able to advocate for our buyers. We need to be able to negotiate for them. They're especially if they're first-time home buyers, they're nervous. They're scared. Or if they're, having to sell their house to buy another one and they have a lot of trepidation. They're like, oh, what if this house doesn't sell, or what if it sells too quick and I can't find something else? So just being their advocate and being able to negotiate on their behalf and be able to answer their questions and let them know there's no stupid questions. Ask me anything. Ask me anything that you're feeling uncomfortable with, even if you think it's silly. So I think that's just going to be our best way forward.
I think it's definitely all about having that real estate confidence in yourself, talking to clients. Hunter? How do the new commission structures and other NAR changes affect the interactions between lenders and real estate agents?
I mean, it's just going to come back to communication. I need to know when I'm talking to the client, what conversations you've had so that I know how to address, that extra line item on the initial disclosures or on the loan estimate. As far as like the loan side, it's really not changing too much. We've had our changes in 08 and 09. It's more just ensuring that representation can be paid and making sure that the cash close is there and making sure that all parties involved in the transaction know the limits of the buyer, whether that be debt to income ratio, a purchase price, whatever that may be.
I'm going to follow up on a question from what Colleen asked. Do you have any intentions of kind of explaining to, one of your potential clients the benefits of a buyer's agent?
Good question.
Yeah, so that's something we've kind of already been doing. So whenever we get a lead and the lead offers up who sent them over, hey, look, Marty sent them over. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I don't know if you just lucked out and got Marty or if you know exactly who you're dealing with, but Marty's been in this market for an incredibly long time. She's very knowledgeable. Not only is she knowledgeable, but she has a ton of team members that are willing to hive mind and make sure you're getting the best deal. I mean, this is a script we have. That's how I can rally it off so quickly. So, I mean, I think it's going to be kind of just encouraging that type of communication even more so. I think the more the buyer feels like we are a team, we're a package, we come together, we work together, the less divide and conquer they're going to feel where, I can do this without this person or I can do this without. No, you really can't. I mean, you don't have knowledge of the market. You don't have knowledge of, what is a good deal and what's a bad deal. And I don't know if you've looked at attorney fees, but if you try and get an attorney after this deal is done, they're a lot more expensive than that buyer's agent is going to be right now. So, yeah, I mean, I heard recently that, attorney fees are roughly like 33% of what the total payout is. Well, I would much rather pay 2.4 than 33% later on. So having this information ready, going ahead, for us for the past 6 months to a year, prepping that client, prepping our previous clients, and letting them know, hey, look, this is an incredible person you're working with. I don't know if you've lucked out or not, or if you know exactly who you're getting the benefit of working with, but they're going to help you tremendously throughout this process. This is stuff that, every lender who works with agents regularly, and it's not just a refinance lender, should already be including into their scripts and their repertoire because they need to know how to support their partners as well.
Thank you. That was a great question. And I think it's all the more important that we communicate with our lender and make sure that they have that same script and they not you. But there was
Let it be me, though.
Yeah.
But last week I saw a panel and there was an attorney on it, and one of my aha moments was when they brought up the fact that if they have someone coming to them for sale by owner or a buyer coming unrepresented, how they really have a script in regards to telling them that they're not benefiting by not having buyer representation and seller representation, and how they're being, charging them $400 an hour, and at 2.43%, whatever it is, 3.4%, whatever it is pretty cheap compared to what they're going to end up paying through this attorney to manage that. And they,
Yep.
the attorney also doesn't do most of the negotiating and the due diligence
we also get a lot of past clients that come back to us, and we'll just submit an application on a Saturday afternoon and say, hey, I'm back in the market. One thing that we do is we database all of our clients. Your lender should be databasing theirs as well, and they should be marking somewhere in their database who was the original referring agent for that transaction, because this is a great opportunity for me to, hey, Tanya, did you know that John was back in the market? Because I got an app from this sucker today, and he's looking for a $700,000 house. This is a good opportunity for us to be kind of establishing that communication going back as well. So making sure your lender has a good database, making sure they're tracking who's coming back to them and where they originally came from. This is just going to be something else that ties us together even closer.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has to become our advocates, right? It's really what it comes down to. So making sure that the partnerships that you are aligned with definitely have your best interest too, not just the clients at heart. But
Good point. Good point.
Sure. So for the listing agents on the panel, it seems like the topic of the conversation is being geared toward the buyer automatically having to pay their agent. Now, for me, as a listing agent, is that not how?
Not necessarily.
Okay, good. I hope not, because of course, when I'm working with the buyer, I'm going to do everything I can to try to negotiate for my fee to be paid if a seller lists a property and opts not to include buyer agency compensation. But when I'm on the listing side, of course, my number one priority is to make sure my seller knows how important that buyer's agent is and how important it is to them in the overall ease and sale of their home to offer that buyer agent compensation. So that's not where all of this is going. That's kind of how I picked up some of the questions and comments for you.
That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. If you look at our new listing agreements, there's that little checkbox where they say that they don't have to offer as a seller, right, a compensation. But let's think about this. If you're not offering a compensation to a buyer's agent, are you actually decreasing the amount of buyers that are going to be willing to look at your house? Because they're going to have to pay that extra 2.4% or whatever the percentage may be that you negotiate with them. And so, I mean, I have that conversation with them all the time. Is this really what you want to do? And traditionally, in our market and in most markets, buyers agents were paid. And so that whole transition time frame, however long it may be, do we really want to go cold turkey? I don't think so. I don't think we're ready for that. Although we are a very dynamic industry, and we're going to figure this out. There's going to be all kinds of different new business models that come up, and we're going to figure this out together. And I think that's why it's important that we're all here so that we can talk about it. I think there's a question over there.
let me answer this too. It's been interesting. I had my first listing appointment last week where I really had to, because it's going to be coming on the market August 1st. And, with TMLS, the compensation is coming out August 6th. And I was like, oh, this will be the first one that, is going through this process. So and I thought it was very interesting when you looked at our form changes, the forms really didn't change that much, which again, kudos to NC Forms Committee for really putting together good forms. But I thought it was kind of funny that now we have this whole disclaimer that, oh, you do not have to. Okay, well, that's always been the case, right? And so what we've elected to do when we're sending listing agreements now is then also send the 220, the compensation form. We're still intending to, negotiate our commissions accordingly and have that compensation. I am sure we're all going to run into that seller that's like, no, I'm not paying. And what I would encourage you from the buyer side is just because that answer is no right at that point in time, when they've maybe been sitting on the market for 30 days and don't have any interest, they might be a little bit more, motivated to offer comp. So I think it's just, again, changing those conversations with your client, don't just eliminate a house because they're not offering comp. You have no idea what that's going to kind of come out like. Because I do think there will be some, listing agents that might advocate for not offering compensation up front, right? Because the same reason why we've advocated for not putting allowances out there or, other, fees right up front. Because why, some people's rationale is going to be, why would you negotiate something that you might not have to yet, right? So, I'm kind of N of one right now with this, right? I've got a few more listing appointments later on this week, but it was kind of funny. The seller's reaction was like, well, why wouldn't we pay a buyer's agent? And that was really the gist of the conversation. I just said, hey, moving forward, it's going to not be displayed anymore. So we, as the listing agent, are going to have to do a better job communicating that through whatever channels everyone comes up with. So now we have lots of questions. Okay. Oh, well, you know what? The woman in the blue back there is patiently waiting. So let me go to her first. Are you a woman, Tim? No. Okay. What's your question?
The question that I had, and so I just wanted to hear a little more dialogue when we have those sellers that are reluctant to put up front that they're offering a compensation, and they say that they want to wait and see what it's like. I've had that conversation already. They're wanting to test and see if they're going to get offers first. What would be your recommendation to the sellers? I can project.
Her.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the mic, I think, is just for you, right? Okay. David's like, yes, and your voice is very loud, Renee. No, I think the question was, what if you have a seller that says, hey, I don't want to compensate anything up front. I just want to, see what happens. Again, I go back to that standard operating procedure, right? Are you willing to do that? Because let's face it, there's a lot of cost, time, and energy on a listing that might end up being a dud. And interestingly enough, this has already been tested in our market before because we've had, zero comp. And when you looked at most of those homes, and granted, we won't have this ability moving forward, but if you looked at most of those homes, they sold for a large percentage different from list price to selling price, and were on the market like, I don't remember what the stat was. I think 6 or 7 times longer. So I think, again, being prepared for those conversations, so much of it is just going to be reading the room with your client. And I mean, there may be scenarios that you choose to move forward on it depending on where the listing is at and those type of things. So I don't know that I have all the answers on that yet. I mean, part of it's going to be kind of situational, but Desiree, I know you do listings, so I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
It'll be a conversation, and it's going to be it's always been a conversation because you've always had to fill in what the buyer compensation was, and in some areas it's a 3%. We can't talk commission rates. In some, they've been variable rates. Variable rates. But so it's always been a conversation, and then the conversation will just be, we can always make changes. We can always go either to or from, and so leave it open and have that conversation with them. But yes, it's going to be very important, as Renee stated, that listing agents have conversations with buyers agents and their sellers. It's no different than any other form of negotiation that's happening with our offer to purchase.
And I think two things that I would say is, are you going to get, by not offering compensation, are you going to get the highest and best? I mean, my goal as a listing agent is to get you the highest and best. And if you are not offering compensation, there are going to be buyers that do not, and agents that do not show your house. And then the second thing is, we've always had for sale by owner. And so why was that not a successful thing? And there's only 7% of homes that are sold for sale by owner, and 4% of that is family to family. It's because they get the highest and best and market the high, the value of the house. So those would be my two comments.
And I think those are good points.
Capture those first few days on the market either. So if you want to waste those days, not offering, that's just really a chance you want to be taking as a seller.
And our whole goal is to create competition and to get masses in the house the first few days. You're not going to get that.
You've been waiting so patiently.
I just want to offer some advice. If you're a buyer's agent, before you ever make an offer on behalf of the buyer, do not send that offer in unless you have a document from the seller that says what they're willing to pay or not pay to you or your firm. If you send it in after you send in your offer, that seller could pay you nothing. So, Form 220.
220 will be our new best friend.
Yeah.
Second piece of advice. I don't think any of us want to be credit managers with our clients. But when you're dealing with a buyer and you don't know which house you're going to show that buyer, because you just met them, like you said, could call you on the phone. You don't know them from Adam. But what they tell you sounds reasonable. They say they're pre-approved, or they say they're this, they're that. But you don't really know. You don't know if they have the money to pay you. Should the house they end up wanting to buy, is the house the seller not willing to pay a commission? So I think we're going to have to work a little bit harder as buyer's agents to get proof of funds if they say they're paying cash, or to get proof of funds if they're going to get a mortgage and pay you out of pocket, which is the other way they're going to have to do it. You need to know who you're representing. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting a lot of your time as a buyer's agent, and you can get burned. So just be careful about that.
Thank you, Tim. Renee, this question is for you. How will the new NAR rules affect how you do open houses?
This is honestly the easiest question to answer. Interestingly enough, let's see what the date is. And oh my gosh, my eyes are like, I think I may have to invest in some. On 6/20 of this year, the NC Realtors answered this exact question. I think that's been a question. I think I've done these panels a few times, and that's been one of the biggest questions. Keep in mind that the open house is a form of advertising on your seller's behalf, right? So when I say make sure you're plugged in, this NC Realtors, legal Q&As, another great resource that we have that we pay money to have access to, at least if you are, a member of TMLS or JCAR or wherever everyone else is from. But point being is, again, make sure you're reading these because this was like super simple response to that. Again, if you start getting into where you are trying to, build a relationship and rapport with someone, make sure you have your working with real estate agents with you. And then at the point that maybe they are electing to see another home, or, showing a lot of interest in the open house that you're hosting, guess what? You're then going to have to show them some sort of, whether it's our standard buyer agency agreement or a form that your, firm has come up with. That's when you're going to have to move to agency. So open houses really shouldn't change because honestly, you should have been doing that all along anyway. In funny story, and I know Marty and a few others in this room remember this, we used to not be able to show buyers a home without a buyer agency agreement. This was working with real estate agents came out in 2001. So prior to that, you'd meet some random person and be like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. By the way, I have to have this signed. Well, I've seen 5 other homes and I haven't had to sign this with anyone. Well, guess what? I take my profession seriously. So, again, I think while all of this change, I think is always hard for us to get through, I do think it will elevate our industry, make us do better again, right? I feel like during COVID, we lost a lot of this, advocacy for our clients. So, I don't even remember what the question. Oh, open house. It was supposed to be a simple answer. Anyway, so this is already in, at your fingertips. Make sure you're plugging into this. A lot of these questions have been answered. And yeah, so open houses, same drill as before.
Key thing to remember is you're representing the seller when you're doing an open house, unless it's your listing.
So, since we represent the buyer potentially at the open house, would it be best practice to provide that compensation form? If the open house agent provides the compensation form to say, hey, this seller has agreed to compensate the buyer agent, would that be, what do you think about that?
So, one, you're not representing any buyer when you're hosting an open house, right? So I think we have to be really careful with like our communication of that, right? You are there, as a sub agent of the seller. That's also why Real Estate Commission doesn't want an EXP agent hosting a Keller Williams open house or vice versa, right? We're supposed to stay within our firm channels. So again, you're there as a sub agent of the seller when you're at that open house. Now, at the point that that conversation changes, right, then you might be exploring dual agency or designated dual agency really are your two options, or sub agency. So with that being said, when you ask about the comp, I know our plan is we plan to have a QR code in the house that will link to all the documents along with any compensation agreement that we will have. They're very easy for any agent to get access to, right? So yes, I mean, I think you could disclose, hey, the seller has agreed to compensating the agent X amount, whatever that might be. I don't think it would be bad to be armed with that information at an open house. I don't know if anyone else has a different opinion on that, but
No, I agree with you, but I have another thought.
okay.
I think open houses are going to become extremely busy. I think all the people that are like, I don't want to talk to an agent, I just want to go look at houses this weekend, they're going to go out. They're going to go out and they're going to look. And I think there's going to be a lot more traffic. So get your game up, get your party out, put your flyers out, put your balloons out, do everything you can do to get eyeballs on it. Because I think it's going to be busy. And if you're in a high traffic area, if you're in Cary, they're already busy. So having two agents on for some of those listings might be beneficial because sometimes you just don't have a chance to talk to everybody. So I think just a lot more traffic at open houses is what we're going to see.
All right, moving forward with Tanya. How do buyer agents advocate for the best interest of their clients?
I think we just come right back around to negotiation and having an eye to look for things that our buyers aren't looking for. You're doing your showings, you're walking through and they're just oohing and eyeing over everything, and you're looking for water stains and you're checking pressure and you're looking for loose floorboards and checking the age of the systems, and they're just so like, this is where my couch is going to go, and my Christmas decorations can go over here. So I think it's just our job to be their advocate, but also be their eyes and make sure that we're pointing things out to them. Like, okay, I know you really love this house, but look at these things. Do you think it's wise for us to pursue making an offer on this house? Are you prepared for X, Y, and Z to come up in the inspection report? Maybe we look at a couple other houses today and come back to this one if you really like it. So just not only negotiating, but just making sure we're looking out for things they aren't looking out for.
From a non-agent perspective, there is peace of mind in knowing that there's somebody else who knows what to look for. Everyone in this room, y'all all know what to look for. You go into a house, and if me and Tanya walk into a house, we're looking at very different things, just out the gate. And I do mortgage loans every single day, but we're still looking at very different things. And I am the guy looking at where's my tree going to go, and then where's my daughter's Christmas tree going to go. So we're just looking at it from a different lens. And I think the longer your clients spend with you, and I've always heard, when you're driving around with a client, they're in your car, always get gas. Always let them know, and talk about the gas prices. God, These gas prices just, they won't come down. Let them know that you're investing in them. Let them know that you're putting in work for them, that this is costing you something to be with them. It's costing your time. It's costing your gas money. They're going to see these things. They're going to pick up these things. And when Tanya reveals, hey, yeah, that's awesome, and I love that you want to put your tree there, but did you see that giant mold spot up there? No? Okay. Well, let's have someone look into that. The more you spend time with your clients and the more you can give them throughout the transaction, the more just points of value that you can provide throughout that, there's going to be less and less argument, I think, on compensation and what that looks like on the back end.
How will the new NAR changes affect approvals? Yeah. Sorry.
So when a client applies with us, we run numbers for the amount they've requested, but also in the body of the email, we include, hey, you can go up to $375, $400, whatever it is, at least to give you just a little bit of wiggle room. That is going to be very important going forward because you guys need to know, is there any wiggle room in this if we're going to increase to have a seller concession, things like that. It's also going to be, I think, you're not going to see it as much with the buyer who can put down 50%, 60% and down payment. But those first-time home buyers who are coming out, maybe they're doing a USDA loan and they're having 0% down and they are strapped on cash. We have to have very candid conversations with them to make sure, and the way we will phrase it is, you're going to go and put money down on due diligence. I need to have this conversation with you and be very frank with you going forward so that you don't end up losing money on the back end. Do you know how your agent is being compensated? Do you know, have you had that discussion with them? Hopefully, yes. But, if not, I would encourage you to do so before you go under contract. Direct them back. Once again, staying in our own lane, sending them back to you guys, but making sure that, we are looking out and doing our due diligence for our buyers as well. I think that's just going to be the biggest change we're going to see.
Would you ever demonstrate, hey, this is a compensation model here? This is how much more it would cost you per month should it not, be compensated through the seller? Are you planning on having that type of conversation?
Oh, yeah. So we already do that a little bit with we just in general with seller concessions. So yes, it looks scary to go up $10,000 more on the purchase price. However, if they're giving a seller concession for $5,000 and you're going up in $10,000, they're willing to do a seller concession for $5,000. Let's apply that towards your rate buy down and show you how much more you can get. In that scenario, it's going to be much more advantageous for them to do that because the rate buy down is going to lower their payment a lot more than the $10,000 purchase price increase. So absolutely, that's something we can do. We can show them numbers do like a cost comparison. That's pretty simple.
I think, when we're talking about all of that, it's scary, right, those amounts. But
yeah.
Then when you see it and it's cost you $10 more a month, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Kind of like that aha moment.
Yep.
I think this is the last round of our questions. Okay. Desiree, how are we overcoming objections with our clients, and how are we showing value to us as real estate agents?
Great question, Kelly. I think the bigger question is, why do clients have objections? And they have objections when they have a lack of confidence in us. So if we can show our value, there should not be any objections. It's the same thing when you go on a listing or a buyer presentation appointment and you think you're done and yet they have 20 more questions. Well, guess what? I probably didn't do my job right and explain things to them. It's no different. So I think by showing value, and how do we show value? By giving them top-notch service. By giving them confidence in us that we know what we're doing, that we're going to do things on time, and that we're going to communicate that as much as possible. Because communication is the number one thing that I think people are saying about us that we don't do well. So we can all learn from this, I think. But adding value, gaining confidence, that is going to help just alleviate most of these objections that we'll have.
Good answer, good answer. Renee? How should agents adjust their marketing strategies to highlight their value proposition considering the NAR changes?
Well, I think we've always talked about, our buyer and seller meetings, right? Strategy sessions, whatever you want to kind of dub them in your marketing plan. But I am of the mindset, when just throw it all out there, right? I mean, you guys really have to sit down and think about every little thing you do. How good does that look to send across a list of 500 things that you do in a transaction that you may or may not be thinking of versus here's 20 things that I do, right? So I think really being able to articulate all of the little nuances, right? Like we were dealing with German cockroaches in a house last week, right? And being able to really kind of relay stories about, because most people are clueless about, what we do in our process, right? So I think being able to really kind of throw everything in the kitchen sink, so to speak, into your marketing and those type of things, and to the newer agent's point, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name off the top of my head, but I really don't know that. I mean, I know for us, we're really not having to change that much. I mean, again, if we have a seller that's willing to compensate, obviously that's going to go on, some of our marketing materials differently than now. But we've always had a strong buyer and seller presentation. So, I think it just kind of depends on where you're starting at. And maybe kind of take a look at your existing things, or if you don't have any, I've always been taught 80% is better than 100. It's better to have something out there than not. So I think just kind of taking a look at what you're doing and kind of maybe elevating that a bit, right? And again, being able to communicate all of those little nuances, right, that probably keep half of us up in the room in the middle of the night dreaming about termites and, I don't know, chimneys falling down. What was my dream last night? I don't even remember. But point being is, there is a lot of stress in this industry. There is, we take on a huge amount of liability. And I think that seems to be what's been missed, in general about there is a cost of doing business. There is a cost to us to provide, excellent, customer service and those type of things. And again, being very clear and concise on how you're communicating that.
Renee, are you going to allow your team to practice dual agent, designated agent, or just seller sub-agent?
I think we're going to have to handle on a case-by-case basis. Right now we do practice dual agency. It doesn't happen often, because of obviously EXP firm size. We do designated agency quite often. I don't know that I really want to do. I don't think I have any interest in doing seller sub-agency because the ironic thing, we had a lawsuit about that in the 90s. So, why not swing the pendulum back the other way? But, I won't get on that soapbox. So I don't think that we will plan on doing seller sub-agency. I don't have any interest in doing it, and I sure as heck don't want to add, again, more tasks to my already full plate. So I think we'll kind of still be dual agent, designated agent, and then obviously buyer's agent.
And Tim, what's JAG's policy on that?
We've always practiced dual agency if it's designated dual or just standard dual for working with another HPW agent. If we don't practice pure dual agency, we haven't, as long as I've been there, if you have a buyer who is interested in your listing, all the offers go through your broker in charge. You never see any of the offers. So in that sense, you can practice pure agency where you're working with a buyer who's interested in your listing. I've done that twice, but all the offers that came through went to Susan Holbrook, as they happened when she was still a bit, and she dealt with all the different offers and talked to the listing client, and they decided on what they thought was best. But my client had an opportunity to make an offer. But every company's different. It depends upon how you want to handle it. But you've got to keep that separation. If it's your client, your buyer wanting to buy your listing, you've got to keep separation.
Okay. Tanya, are you providing resources to your consumers about the changes?
I mean, yes, our marketing department is amazing, and Dave has done a wonderful job of putting together buyer and seller presentations for us so that we can sit down and really walk them through this step by step and let them know all the information, sit down and go through all of the forms with them, and then give them those resources to then take home. So that because you're hitting them with a ton of information, they're probably going to walk out with their head spinning, especially if they've never done it before. So being able to just give them all of those nice, beautiful presentations to take with them, they can go home and decompress a little bit, and they can sit down and go through. And I always just tell them, don't hesitate to call me or text me or email me if anything didn't come up in our meeting that you all of a sudden you have a question on. Like, I always just want to be as transparent as I can possibly be with them and let them just get comfortable with all the information. And I think that's how we do it. Do you have something to say?
Last question of the day. Can you share examples of successful collaboration between lenders and agents that have benefited clients?
Yeah. I had a closing on Monday, and the agent texted me afterwards. Do you see Aaliyah? Sure, I know, right?
Wait, no. that's
Aaliyah?
Hillary. You're going to make me put my glasses on in a minute.
Hold on. Oh, there it is. Thank you for all your help with buyer. Done and recorded. It's been a journey. I appreciate you doing the impossible for per usual. So I love that text message. I need to frame that text message. This client needed a 2-week close, and they needed the best of both worlds. They needed a low cash to close and a low payment. That's not how math works. And they were already pre-qualified with another lender, just had brought the lender into the situation themselves, and the lender could get them the monthly payment, but could not get them the cash to close they needed. I was given all this information up front before I was ever introduced to the client. So when my first conversation happened with the client, I was able to address, hey, look, I know it's a really hard market right now for rates, first-time home buyers, really strapped on cash. Let's find the best way to get you the lowest monthly payment and the lowest cash to close possible. Boom. She had 2 items addressed up front in my very first speech with her, and so she had a little more peace of mind going forward with it. She did make her closing date. I got the contract 13 days, calendar days, 13 before she closed. I was able to give her a lender credit, and the agent gave her a credit as well to help get her cash to close where she was and the monthly payment she wanted. But here's the thing. I was given a ton of information up front, so I knew what to address with the client. Me and the agent have a great relationship, and she knew I could get it done, and she knew that she needed to push the buyer my direction. I think when we have this type of line of communication between agent and lender, the client is only going to benefit. I really just think that everyone just wins when we talk to each other.
That is it for the questions. Does anyone else have a question for today? All right, so do me a favor, okay? Oh, Tim.
Question, but I just want to point a couple things out. For those of you that don't have your ABR designation, considering how important buyer agency is right now, and knowing how to be the best buyer agent you can be, on August the 18th and 19th at RAR, there's a 2-day class where you can earn your ABR designation for $10. Normally it costs $295.
Wow.
So, and this is being taught by Patrice Willett, who is a past president of NC Realtors. Very knowledgeable, she teaches a great class. So
You said the 18th and 19th of August.
18th and 19th at RAR in Carroll.
And Tim, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it free, like, online, too?
Yeah.
You can, if you
Yes.
want to do it online, but I highly recommend
Yeah,
taking
in
the
person.
$10
I
and
agree.
investing that in order to be there in person. Second, there are opportunities to give back to your association and your members by getting involved in leadership. Marty has been a great supporter of mine when I was running to be president-elect, and now you're president this year. And I want to thank her both in front of everyone else for doing that. But
you want to get involved in your association at some point, if you believe in giving back. And I've been involved since 2012, joined the board in 2014, and 10 years later, I'm the president. Not everyone wants to be president, not everyone wants to be on the board. But if you want to run for a director position, you have until August the 6th. Everyone gets the Monday minute. It came out on the 15th. In there, it gives you the dates, it gives you a link to how you can apply. You go online, you see if you qualify to run for that position. We want more people to get involved. We have more people to register to be on committees and councils this year than ever before. 55 new people who had never been involved in RAR stepped up and said, I want to get involved. We placed every single person on a committee or a council that said they wanted to help. And 75% of the people got their first choice. We asked everyone to give us our first, second, third choice of theirs. So I want to encourage you to get involved if that is something you would like to do. I would also say that as an RPAC chair last year, as a major investor, as an RPAC Hall of Fame member, it's important to understand that we have a voice, we had a voice in dealing with this NAR deal. We're going to have members of Congress that are going to support us in new ways in the future because they're the people that we have helped to get elected. I've spent 4 days out of the last 7 all day at RAR interviewing candidates running for City Council of Raleigh, Wake County Commission, the Mayor's Office of Raleigh, State Senate, State House. This is something that your members at RAR do to help decide who we think would be that advocate for real estate, for us, our industry, and for private property rights. There is no National Association of Homeowners. We are it. We are the voice of homeowners, whether they're buyers or future buyers, whether they're current owners. We are the voice, but we don't have a voice unless we elect people that kind of see it our way, that they understand what's important, that they're willing to listen to us. So when you invest that minimum $15, or you're a major investor, which is $1,000 or more, you're investing in your future, in your industry. You're investing in protecting it. You're investing in protecting your clients and your future clients. So don't take that lightly. And I like to say, if you're making a lot of money in real estate, you have the opportunity to lose a lot of money if, for example, the state of North Carolina does what they've been trying to do since 2013, which is to add an 8% sales tax to our commission.
Oh, goodness. We could talk about this for days. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Listen, before you go, I see people getting up. Yes, get involved. Listen, get your notebooks out and write this down, okay? Do me a favor. Just do it. Ravi. Write down 3agent.com, okay? 3agent.com. This is going to get you updates with future events that we're going to have, okay? We're going to start having events monthly, and I want to keep you updated on what the different subjects are. You can also get updates about other trainings like fast forward movement, all kinds of training, okay? So it's an important 3THREE, comma, COMMA agent.com. Okay? All right. I love seeing your beautiful faces today. I really did.